What's up, guys? This is Dylan from Snap Decision, and today I'm going to be doing my 2024-2025 NFL playoff predictions. Starting out in the wild card round, we're going to go to the AFC. First, we have the Broncos versus the Bills. So the Bills are an 8.5 point favorite in this game. Now, these two teams did not face this year, although last year the Broncos did go into Buffalo and steal a win in a pretty exciting game. So they definitely do have some experience going into Buffalo. The Broncos, led by Bo Nix, and their offense mainly focused around some amazing pass catchers such as Courtland Sutton. Marvin Mims has really come on at the end of the year. Their run game, though, is definitely a weakness. They haven't really been able to run the ball, which is something that teams are going to have to do against this Buffalo team. As far as the Bills go, their offense has been great. The defense has been pretty shaky. They are getting some pieces back on that side, so it's definitely something that's going to help them as they go in deeper and deeper into the postseason. But I think the Bills are just too much to handle. The playoff experience, this is Bo Nix's first game in the playoffs as he is a rookie. So I think the Bills, the amount of playoff experience they have, they're going to be able to battle the Broncos. I think the Broncos can cover the spread. So if I was taking the points, I would take the Broncos 8.5 here, but the Bills will move on to the second round. Now, the next game we have is the Steelers versus the Ravens, and this is an AFC North clash. So this will be the third time that these teams have faced this year. The Steelers took the first game 18-16, and the Ravens took the second game, I believe 31-17, but a game that was very close until the end. The Ravens are 10-point favorites in this game, and that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. I do understand the Steelers have looked pretty sluggish over the last couple of weeks, but this is a divisional game in the playoffs. Mike Tomlin versus John Harbaugh. These games are always close, and I feel like 10 points is kind of a lot. Now, if you go to the Steelers side, Russell Wilson and George Pickens are going to have to get into sync if they want any chance to win this game. I'm not sure what's been going on the last couple of weeks since Pickens came back from his injury, but there has been a lot of struggles on that side. Najee Harris is going to have to kind of be a main factor in this game, along with the special teams. The Steelers special team is going to have to create some kind of turnover. On defense, they're going to have to create turnovers. TJ Watt is going to have to be a massive factor in this game. And that's the only way that the Steelers are really going to win this. If they turn this into a sluggish, low-scoring game, under 20 points, that's the recipe for success for the Steelers. On the Ravens side, with Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, not sure if Zay Flowers is going to be able to go in this game. So that's going to be an advantage for the Steelers as well. Mark Andrews is going to have to be a main factor. But Lamar Jackson's legs are really going to be what the Ravens need to win this game. Between him and Derrick Henry, they're going to have to be major factors. I do believe that the Ravens will win this game, but I would not be laying 10 points on the Ravens in a divisional rival game in the wild card. So I would take the Steelers plus 10 if I was betting on this, but the Ravens will move on to the next round. Lastly, we have the Chargers versus the Texans. Now, this is probably the most interesting game in the wildcard round on the AFC side, as we have two teams that are kind of going in opposite directions right now. The Chargers have been trending up, while the Texans have been falling further and further down over the last couple of weeks, but they do return to the playoffs after last year beating the Browns, and they do have kind of a chip on their shoulder to make a little bit of a further run than they did last year. Now, for the Texans, the main weapons is C.J. Stroud, Joe Mixon, Nico Collins. They're going to have somebody else emerge. Dalton Schultz is kind of coming on at the end of the year, but they're going to need somebody like Robert Woods or any of those other pass catchers to kind of make an impact for them to be able to be successful in this game. The Chargers secondary has been steadily improving as the season has gone on. On the offensive side for the Chargers, Justin Herbert and J.K. Dobbins and Ladd McConkey are going to be some of the main focus points. They're going to need someone else to step up out of this pass catcher group if they're going to make a run in this playoffs. That being Quentin Johnson, Joshua Palmer if he's healthy. Someone's going to have to step up because that's a main weakness for this Chargers group. Their defense, though, has been playing great. And in the playoffs, defense travels. So I'm going to take the Chargers in a close one. This game can really go either way, and the line is 2.5 for the Chargers. So I'm going to take the Chargers, as I think they're trending in the right direction, and the Texans have kind of been a mess over this last half of the season. Now, going into the NFC side, we have the Packers versus the Eagles. This is a pretty familiar spot for Green Bay, as they were the 7th seed last year when they took down the Cowboys. And the Eagles are returning. They're looking to kind of make a Super Bowl run like they did a few years ago. This Eagles team, however, is a little bit different. They have Saquon Barkley, along with those weapons outside, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, and hopefully Hurts. He should be good to go for this game. He's kind of been battling some concussions over the last couple of weeks, but he should be all good to go. This Eagles defense has been a main storyline throughout this season. They've really come on as of late, so that's definitely going to be something that's important. And the Packers have been kind of trending in a downwards direction since the midway point of the season, losing some key games. Even that game against the Bears, they really should have won, even though it wouldn't have ended up mattering since the Commanders did win. But that's definitely not a game that you want to lose. Now, for the Packers to win this game, they're going to need an A-class game from Jordan Love and Josh Jacobs, kind of controlling the pace of the game. Josh Jacobs is going to have to be able to get 20 to 30 carries and kind of control how this game is going, and they're going to need to get turnovers on defense. That's really what led them to that upset last year over the Cowboys. They were able to turn Dak over several times in that first half, and they'll have to do the same to Jalen Hurts. Now, on the Eagles side, I think what they should do is focus on running the rock to start the game. Don't put Jalen Hurts in any difficult situations until he is needed to be in. Once you guys are kind of running the ball, then kind of look for those deep shots to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. The Eagles are 5-point favorites in this game, and I believe that they'll be able to cover that spread. So give me the Eagles going on to the divisional round. Next game we have is Commanders versus Buccaneers, and this is a rematch from week 1, just like the last game was. In that game, the Buccaneers won, but that was also Jaden Daniels' first start, so I'm not sure how much we can really read into that. And the Buccaneers have suffered a lot of injuries since that game, so a lot of their key players aren't on the field anymore. So for this game, it's really going to come down to experience versus no experience. The Bucs have a lot of playoff experience through a couple of their deep playoff runs that they've had. Last year, they made it to the divisional round with Baker Mayfield. So on the Bucs side, it's really going to be key that Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans are kind of getting that groove going early, along with feeding Bucky Irving. He's been one of the most explosive players in the NFL over the past couple of weeks. We'll see if Cade Otton is able to play in this game, and the Bucs pass rush is going to have to get to Jaden Daniels early and kind of contain his running ability. Now on the Commanders side, what they're going to want to do is kind of unleash Jaden Daniels in this game. He can kind of take over a game and win the game that they're not really supposed to. So if I was them, I was just try to get Jaden Daniels involved as quickly as possible. Get the ball to Terry McLaurin, get the ball to your playmakers, utilize Austin Eckler, Brian Robinson as well. At the end of the day, I think the Buccaneers defense is a little bit too much for this Commanders team to handle. Between the two units, the Bucs definitely have the edge on that side, and the pass rush is really going to be able to get to the Commanders. So give me the Bucs in a close one. They are 3-point favorites in this game as well. Lastly, we have the Vikings versus Rams, and this is a rematch of a mid-season game that we had. So all these NFC games are rematches. The Vikings did lose to the Rams, which is one of their few losses during the year. We have Sam Darnold versus Matthew Stafford. Sam Darnold's making his first playoff start. Matthew Stafford obviously has a lot of playoff experience with these Rams. So for the Rams, I think the key thing is to get Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua going early, feed Kyron Williams as well, and kind of jump out to an early lead. That way their pass rush can really get to Sam Darnold. The Lions kind of put on a recipe for how to stop this Vikings offense in Sunday's game. So they're definitely going to want to get to Sam Darnold early, create havoc. You don't want to give him time in the pocket or else he's going to pick you apart. For the Vikings, it's kind of going to be a similar recipe. They're going to want to attack Matthew Stafford, make him uncomfortable, kind of try to disrupt some of those quick timing throws. I know they have linebackers able to kind of jump those pass routes and feed Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison on the offensive side. I can see this game kind of turning into a shootout. And in that scenario, I'm going to go with a more experienced quarterback. So give me Matthew Stafford and the Rams moving on to the second round. So moving on to the divisional round, we have the Chargers versus the Chiefs. A AFC West clash, so this will be the third time that these teams have played this year. The Chiefs won the first 2 games. The first game they won in LA pretty handedly. In the second game they won on a doink at the last second to clinch the division. So the Chiefs are going to be coming off a lot of rest in this game. So I can kind of see them starting out a little bit slow, just kind of getting back into the flow of things. Their offense was rolling at the end of the year. So that's definitely going to be a little bit different than what the Chargers have seen from this Chiefs team. They didn't get to see the full-fledged offense with Pacheco. They didn't get to see Hollywood Brown on the field. So it's going to be a different look for the Chargers than what they're kind of used to from the Chiefs. As far as the Chiefs go, they're going to want to stop the Chargers. Definitely are going to want to put Trent McDuffie on Ladd McConkey and then force the other pass catchers to beat the Chiefs. For the Chargers, they're going to want to pound the rock, control the pace of the game, kind of like they were doing a little bit more in that second game, and really want to keep the time of possession as much as possible. Hold the ball from the Chiefs is kind of the recipe that they have to beat the Chiefs. However, I'm going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs in this game. The amount of playoff experience that they have is going to be too much to handle for Justin Herbert and the Chargers, but they will put up a valiant fight, and it'll be a closer game than many people would think. The game we have is Baltimore at Buffalo. These two teams have been on a collision course all year. This is a rematch from a game earlier in the year where the Ravens kind of destroyed the Bills, but I think this game will be much closer than that one. Now, for the Ravens, what they're going to want to do is run the ball all over this Bills team. They're not going to really want to throw the ball around. They're going to want to control the time of possession, keep the ball out of Josh Allen's hands, and feed Derrick Henry. That's going to be their main objective. For the Bills, they're going to want to focus on stopping Derrick Henry early, forcing Lamar Jackson into being a passer rather than running the ball all over them. So that's kind of be the two strategies. I think the Ravens will be able to control this game a lot more than Buffalo, and that's going to put them into a more advantageous position. So I'm going to take the Ravens going to the AFC Championship, and that's going to be a rematch between last year's AFC Championship where the Chiefs beat the Ravens on the road. Now going into the divisional playoffs on the NFC side, we have the Lions versus the Rams, and this is a rematch from last year this is another rematch from last year where the Lions beat the Rams narrowly on a kind of controversial pass interference call in their first playoff game in the wildcard round. So Matthew Stafford will be going back to Detroit, back to his old stomping grounds, and he'll be looking to pull off a pretty major upset against the number 1 seed Lions. Now, I think the Rams have the ability to beat this Lions team. Earlier in the year, we got this rematch, I believe it was in week 1, and the Rams were pretty close, even with a ton of offensive line injuries. I mean, Matthew Stafford had like 3 seconds to throw in every single drop back, but somehow he still almost pulled off the comeback. So I think this Rams team really does have a chance at beating the Lions in this game. In order to do that, they're going to have to get their pass catchers going, and they're going to have to kind of use some of the same strategies they used in week 1 to stop this Lions team. They'll only have to be focusing on Jahmyr Gibbs rather than him in Montgomery as long as he's not back for this game. So that's definitely something that will swing in their favor, along with their offensive line being a lot more healthy compared to that first game. But I'm going to take the Lions. I mean, coming off the week of rest, they're going to be in a much better position rather than the Rams, who are going to have to go through a battle test with the Vikings. So give me the Lions to move on to the championship. And the next game, we'll have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Philadelphia Eagles. This Buccaneers team has kind of gone through an interesting year. They kind of had some ups and downs. They won a very weak NFC South to get this 3 seed. Compared to the Eagles, who have been a dominant team all year on both phases of the ball, this Tampa Bay team, I think they have the ability to beat the Eagles in a shootout type of game, and the Eagles will want to be just kind of running the ball, controlling the pace of the game, not letting it get into a shootout like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will want. Now, the Eagles do have the ability to win shootouts with some of their dynamic playmakers, but that's not really what they're going to be looking to do in this game, especially in a home environment. In Philadelphia, they're going to want to control the pace of the game, feed Saquon, feed their top pass catchers. Now, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did beat the Eagles earlier in the year, but I think the Eagles have gotten a lot better since that game. So I am going to take the Eagles in a matchup that I think could get out of hand. But we'll see. The Eagles do match up pretty well with this Buccaneers team. And I think Tampa Bay is just not going to be able to keep up over the course of 4 quarters. Now, going to the 2 conference championships, we have the Ravens versus the Chiefs and the Eagles versus the Lions. So in the first championship game, we have Ravens-Chiefs, and this is another rematch of Week 1. In that game, as we all know, the Ravens were driving to the end of the field. They thought they caught the game-tying touchdown with Isaiah Likely, but his toe was on the line, so the margin of victory was very narrow in that initial game. And I think we should see something pretty similar in this championship game. Now, the Chiefs will be at home. They'll have some rest. The Ravens will have been pretty battle-tested going through a divisional game with the Steelers and the Buffalo Bills just to make it to this AFC Championship game. So who knows what kind of condition that they're going to be in at this point. And the Chiefs will have had 2 weeks of rest playing the Chargers before heading into this one. In the playoffs, I'm not going to bet against Patrick Mahomes. He just has proven over and over that he has the ability to win these close games. And Lamar Jackson, unfortunately in his career, has not really been able to win some of these big games. So this is kind of a defining moment in his career. So I think the Ravens really will need this win more than the Chiefs do. But I'm not sure if they're going to get it. This would be massive for Lamar Jackson. But I'm going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs in a very close game. And it really could go either way. Next game we have is Eagles versus Lions. And this is another great matchup on paper. The 2 most balanced teams in the NFC could be the 2 most balanced teams in the NFL. Both of these teams have great offenses and defenses. Both of these teams love to pound the rock. Both of these teams have dynamic playmakers all over the field. So this is definitely going to be a very fun game to watch. In Ford Field, so this will be inside of a dome, so we could be looking at a shootout in this game. And in that atmosphere, I really like the Philadelphia Eagles against this Lions team, just because this Lions defense has looked pretty bad over the last couple of weeks. Other than that game against the Vikings, and that's a divisional game, so that's kind of a little bit different. But this will be the first time that these teams play this year, and the Lions have been exposed by the Rams and the Bills. And I think the Eagles will be able to do some pretty similar things on offense to those teams. Look for A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith to be huge playmakers in this game, along with Saquon Barkley. So I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles in what I think will be a shootout. But in the end, the Eagles' defense will be the main difference maker, leading them back to a Super Bowl rematch against the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, in a rematch from 2 years ago, we have the Chiefs versus the Eagles. A 38-35 Super Bowl that was an absolute thriller, and I'm glad to see that we're getting a rematch, and this will be a great game again. Both of these teams have been, in my opinion, the best 2 teams in the NFL this year, and have really been on a collision course to face each other off in the Super Bowl. Kansas City Chiefs will be looking for a three-peat, while the Eagles will be looking for revenge from that Super Bowl loss a few years back, and many of the same pieces are on both of these teams. They haven't really changed very much in 2 years. It's Patrick Mahomes versus Jalen Hurts. The main difference is Saquon Barkley versus, I believe it was Miles Sanders at the time. So that's kind of a huge difference for this Eagles team. The Chiefs have a few different playmakers. This wide receiver group for the Chiefs is way better than it was 2 years ago. I don't really even know how they won a Super Bowl with that wide receiver core that they had a few years back. But this Chiefs team has aged a little bit. Travis Kelce is definitely not the same player he was, but he can turn it on in the playoffs. But I think in a close one between Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts, you have to go with Patrick Mahomes for the three-peat. It really has seemed like a team of destiny this year. So I'm going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs, but this game is going to be extremely close. And really the last 4 games of the year, between the Ravens, Chiefs, Eagles, Lions, it can go any way. Also between the Ravens and the Bills. So really, I believe there's 5 teams that can win the Super Bowl this year. But we'll just have to see how it goes. It really just depends on matchups and injuries, things that are outside of your control. So I'm going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs, and let me know who you guys are going to predict. Go ahead and drop your playoff predictions in the comments down below. And looking forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.